All right, welcome to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. I'm your host, Big Tom Perkins, along with Cameron Meyerly. And I think today we're going to talk a bit about processing those newborn lambs.
Yeah, we kind of talked on where to go next from that first episode and touched briefly on kind of lambing essentials or what we'd like to have close, and uh, certainly could spend time on the importance of identification. Tom, do you have any go-tos on what you're using in those lambs, and then maybe further on and when they enter into that mature ewe flock?
Well, a lot of people I hear use these really small ear tags, and then they'll switch them out later. So last year we used those Q3s from Premier.
Okay,
And then this year, since I was in charge of ordering them, I ordered Q5.
okay, so they're big.
They're big.
Yeah,
And so the lambs are walking around dragging their head, because they have those creepy ear tags on. Actually, so I just ordered blank tags, and then I have one of those markers, and then
okay.
I write the number on. And I was thinking to myself, man, this is so much easier to see them when we're just writing them out. And then I got the old box and was looking, and I was like, oh, those were Q3s, and I ordered Q5s. No wonder they're so much easier to see. They're so much bigger.
Yeah, that's we've bought tags or purchased tags through Premier One as well. I think in terms of the cost, it's hard to beat. I will kind of second there's certain colors that maybe that ink doesn't show up quite as well on when you get them custom printed. But
Hmm.
we're actually going ahead and putting in something that's scrapey approved already, so that those males that are leaving at weaning into that ethnic market already have a tag in and they're good to go. So I don't have to round them up and put a second tag in. But I think we're probably going in that. I think that size is a 1.5. It's the rectangular tag,
Hmm.
and that's solely because of size. We don't deal as much with the dragging the ground trying to pick their head up.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say in those ewe lambs that we end up keeping, on that last episode, kind of mentioned that we're keeping quite a few of them. Unless you put another management tag in, they are impossible to read out in the pasture. And maybe if I had a border collie like you've got, wouldn't be a big deal. But I think it's something that um, moving forward, we're probably going to grab some of those Q5s. Or I know all of the ewes we started with, we actually went with a Ytex, just pre-printed number tag.
Hmm.
And those are nice and it's a cattle tag. Those are nice because I can see them 50 yards away, maybe not that far, but as long as they're looking at you, you can read the number. And I've been pleased with, I guess, ink retention on those tags. They haven't faded, but if those ewes stick around for as long as I'd hope for them to, um, I think we'll run into some issues there, just
Well,
from what I've seen on the cattle side.
I could tell you from having cows, those Y tax after about 7, maybe 8 years, they are impossible to read. I
It's
know
just
we were
one
having
color.
calves. Yeah, we were having calves, and I sent CJ out, and I said, "Go out and read that cow's number. I just can't see it." And I'm old, and I'm blind, I'm deaf. I have trouble walking. All the stuff when you get old. And he'd come back in like 45 minutes later, and he'd say, "I think it's." I'm thinking, what do you mean you think? You can tell there's a number there. You can't quite see it. We ended up replacing some of those tags, and sitting here in the house under the light, you had to turn them a certain way that you could just catch where that number had been. And but the Premier tags, I'm telling you, within 2 years, those pre-printed tags, they were
Are
just
fading.
hard to read. Even up close, you couldn't hardly read them. It's like the ink isn't black; it's like a gray, and it
Hmm.
just was so much harder to see. Now, since we started going the last couple of years with those blank tags, and then I call them magic markers. I don't know what they're called anymore, but writing those on. The issue with that is, my handwriting's terrible. So, CJ's wife was doing them for a while, and her writing's real legible, and
Right.
mine's
Yeah, and
pretty
that's
bad. But I was noticing on these new tags that I have, like, man, my handwriting's getting really good because I could really read these. But then I realized, well, it's a much bigger tag. That was a lot more room to write on.
yeah, and that's been the discussion. You mentioned handwriting. Uh, I hate to look at my own writing, so you either have had sit down with mom or with my wife at the kitchen table and just read the list off of what ewe lambs we're keeping and what tags we're going to put in,
Hmm.
because I refuse to put my own writing on there. I know the nice thing about the marker is if you wanted to write on both sides of the tag, you could do that. And I feel like with those Y-Tex tags, especially, more often than not, that use walking away from me. Again, if I had a border collie, I could
Yeah,
remedy that issue. Um, but if that back of that tag's blank, I'm not. That's half the time I can't see what her number is.
yeah.
It feels like maybe closer to 75 to 80% of the time she's moving away from me when I'm trying to figure out who she is out in the field. I know when I was down at WVU on the Texel flock, we actually had some tags engraved. So they were a
Mhm.
darker uh, tag color. I think we had blue tags with a white underlay. So they actually took a Dremel tool and would grind off that top layer of
Yeah.
plastic.
Hmm.
Those were done custom. Again, if you don't like your handwriting and you thought it was bad enough with a pen, go
Yeah.
ahead and hold a power tool and and try to etch it in. But the perk to those is they don't fade, and I know a lot of cattle guys have probably moved towards that, um, out of curiosity's sake. Look some up, and they're in a similar price bracket as everything else. I think they're like $27, $28 for a pack of 25. And those were blanks. So that might be something. I don't know if you can engrave both front and back, but might be something that we look at doing because again, if we have ewes that are sticking around for 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years, hopefully, um, that tag would, as long as it stays in the ear,
Hmm.
would would hang out and be able to read that would remain legible for their entire life. Have you thought about maybe jumping into the EID game, going with an electronic tag or management software that goes along with that?
I have the issue with that is just the upfront cost to get in.
Right.
The reader is what, 1,500 bucks, 1,200 bucks to start out.
Yeah, I think that's around. It's in that ballpark.
Yeah, and that's just a pile of money to start out with. Um,
Yeah,
he can buy an awful lot of ear tags for that.
yeah. I
Uh,
would love, and
and
I'm
in a
assuming
lot
you're
of these
talking.
markets, you still have to have a USDA tag in them, a scrapey tag. You because I don't know that all these markets have a reader there for them.
Yeah, and I believe that I think you're talking about the Shearwell system
Yeah,
primarily. Yeah,
yeah.
I know that doubles as your scrapey tag. Um, Now, again, same issue that you'll run into with those smaller scrapey tags that you'd get from Premier is you got to grab that sheep and read that number off, um, at that sale barn. But I know those will double as your USDA scrapey tag.
Hmm.
Um, and really all they need on there is your flock ID or your premise ID off of that tag. Um, and I suppose if you factored in what they were going to charge you at the sale barn for putting a tag in, if you brought animals that didn't have any tag, you could probably pay for that EID tag, at least on those animals, because it'd be about the same as what they're charging you to put in that tag, at least the sales that we've sold at.
And I
And I
know,
know,
now the Wilmington, they're talking like, it doesn't have a tag, they're not taking them.
yeah,
They're
that wouldn't surprise me.
they used to put the tags in. I know my cousins, they have some goats and they would take goats up, and they finally got a phone call and said that's the last ones we're tagging. You know, they're not tagged, we're not taking them.
Really, yeah, and
We'll just call you up
that
and tell you come pick your sheep up or your goats up because they didn't sell.
right. Or bring tags with you quick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and that's
so we tag the lambs, and then when something's going to leave the farm, that's then we put the USDA tag in. You
yeah.
figure either way, you're going to have to buy two tags. You know, like unless you go with the EID system, but I think our local sale barn, I don't think they have a way to read those.
Okay. I don't know that it would matter if they could still read a visible number on there
Hmm.
on that Shearwell tag or
And
any
you're
of your
saying that
EID.
Shearwell tag has a visible number on it.
Yes. Yeah, there is a visible number on that Shearwell tag. Again, not it has to be within inches of your face to read it. But I know they tout some pretty strong tag retention in their
Hmm.
literature, and that's something that at least has intrigued me is if I can keep them from if I'm going to invest the money in the tag, I'd like them to keep that tag for it to be of use long term. So it's
Yeah,
something we'd like to do, but like you said, the upfront cost is kind of uh,
that is an
been the
issue.
deterrent.
That is an issue. The tag retention. Oh, I had our neighbors come over, brought their grandkids over to look at the lambs, and their daughter was there, and she was looking at this ewe, and she said, "How come that ewe doesn't move?" And I walked up and I looked, and here it had a piece of baler twine that we had tied a gate with, and that baler twine was wrapped around the ear tag, and she was just standing there not moving, and it
Hmm.
was all twisted up. And I thought, oh, I'll just reach down here and untangle it. No, I had to go get a knife and cut it. I couldn't believe she didn't just back up and rip the tag out, but I was grateful she didn't. But it
Yeah,
was,
that was one of the big things. We used the a premier style round bale feeder, collapsible bale
Mhm.
feeder, and that was one of my biggest concerns was if we're doing this where they have a hole or access to that bale where their head's going in and out, how many tags are we going to replace in the jug or long term? And they seem to the retention has been phenomenal with that feeding system, and I'm surprised by that. So
yeah.
I'm just hopeful. Again, I don't have a bunch of 8-year-old ewes, but but I'm hopeful when they if and when they make it that long that they still have that original ear tag. I know I've purchased some sheep from some other breeders that actually have purchased two sets of ear tags, so they're scrapey, both scrapey tags in like that Q-Flex 1.5 and probably like a 3. I don't think it was quite a 5. And I think put them in either at birth or one in at birth, one in at weaning.
Hmm.
And I've always liked that idea because if they lose one form of identification, of official identification, they have a second one. And you hope that one of the two stays in for a significant amount of time.
Hmm.
But yeah, in terms of other processing, um, with your Katahdins, are you doing anything extra with those ram lambs, or are ear tags about the only thing you have to do?
Well, when they're first born, I mean, we're taking the birth weights on them, and putting that ear tag in, and just like you said in the last episode, we're spraying those navels and so on. We don't clip very many of them unless they're excessively long because they seem to dry up pretty quick. Um, but other than that, so here's a question for you. On our rams, we put the tag in the right ear, and then the ewe lambs, we put the tag in the left ear. And I hear quite a few people do it the exact opposite.
Yeah, so I do it the same as what you would do. Um, I was told though most of the ewes from a lot of producers, most of those ewes will get the tag in the right ear because females are always right. So that was
Yep.
the explanation provided to me.
That was what I was told as well. And I said, well, I still look at from the female point of view, me being a single guy all these years. I still the ram is right and the ewe left. So it's just still like a female because all my females have left me. So that's how I can remember
I was I wasn't ready for that one, but
that.
that's a good one. But yeah, th- we do it simply for the letter the lettering. So
that's
right
what
ear Rams,
that's what
left
we did.
ear. Yep, we've got an E. We've got two E's in the word you,
And,
and
and
I'm gonna have to
weirdly enough,
remember that one.
I did the same thing with cattle because heifers, had a knee in it, and that was
Mm,
easy for me to remember. Stick them in the left ear, and I know when we go to the sort, pulling rams out, that makes it so much easier.
yeah, yeah. I will say this year I've made a note of a couple of ewe lambs that I need to make sure at weaning we get them separated because as I mentioned that last episode is we've had a lot of ram lambs. So I would just get in this kind of muscle memory of put them between the legs, pull the ear out, clamp in that, put that tag in the right ear because we had so
Mhm.
many rams. And so I'm just cruising along and all of a sudden I've just tagged three ewe lambs in their right ear. And if all
Oh,
I'm doing is looking at ear tags, throwing them on the trailer,
yeah,
there's going to be some nice ewe lambs that end up on somebody's dinner table there a couple
yeah.
days later.
I was sitting
So
in a sale barn. We had run a bunch of bull calves up, and the ring man says, "Oh, there's a heifer in there." And I'm like, "Those are mine. Why is there a heifer?" And I was really irritated that one of us, had tagged a heifer in the wrong ear, and so we were just looking at ear tags, what side they were on while we were cutting them. So we do have a ewe lamb, and we've got a ewe that have the ear tag in the wrong side because they had pulled that tag out and split that ear. There just
mm,
wasn't a good place to put a tag again. But it's one of those things we hope we remember. We just keep paying attention. Now on the older ewes, that's not such a big deal, but those lambs. So I think I told you before. I got a lady coming. She's interested in buying some ram lambs just to put out on the grass to finish out, put in the freezer. And I know we've got a ewe with a split ear that's got the ear tag on the wrong side. So we got to cut those out and put them in a pen so she can choose them. We want to make sure we don't have that split eared ewe in there.
yeah, just double check. Just double check them. So yeah, any other processing things? I ought to ask, you mentioned on the iodine you're spraying. So are you spraying or dipping?
We're spraying.
Yeah,
We
not that it I don't know that it matters. I was just curious with the dairy background. I figured you had a bunch of teat dip cup teat teat dip cups
we
sitting
we
around that
did
you could
we
throw
did.
those
I
on.
went through years ago and cleaned out the milk house and found like 4 or 5 of those and kept thinking I'm never going to use these things again, and I threw them away. Burned. They went on the
Yeah.
burn pile, and now I kind of wish I had them, except for it would bother me leaving that iodine sit in that bottle for how long like that. But yeah, so we I went to Tractor Supply and bought the little squirt bottle ones and just been using those.
Yeah, it took about 2 times of that dip cup to hit the ground or land on me and
Oh
stain
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
and, so needless to say, we ended up spraying. We spray everything now, and we douse it pretty good, and have not had an issue with any type of navel ill, coming about
yeah.
after that,
When we
but
had the EAPK field day here, I think it was, we had a couple lambs born, or maybe, yeah, I think that's what it was, and so we were processing them, and people were taking pictures so they could use on the website and so on. And I kept thinking, well, if it's odd to spray them, surely somebody's going to say something. But nobody did. So I thought, wow, it must be an accepted
Yeah.
kind of deal because everybody talked about dipping them.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know with spraying them, I mean, I can when I pull those newborn lambs out of a pen and go to put them and the mother in the jug, that's the first thing I do, and it's easy for one person just to hold that lamb up and with one hand and spray it with the other. Where I would think with dipping them, you'd almost have to have two people, one to hold that lamb level and the other to dip it. So
Yeah, and I can understand the argument of like, well, you want to make sure you're getting full coverage.
yeah.
Uh, Again, I think as long as you're spraying and ensuring you're getting that full coverage, that it's
Hmm.
not just a drive-by spray with the iodine and throw them back in the pen. I think you're probably doing the same thing, and I think less mess, less waste, and doesn't coat everything in the pen with it when you spill the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
On your scrapey tags, are you using different colors for different years or?
yeah. So this is something we've talked about before, and I for us it works to go with one color for that calendar year.
Hmm.
And so like this year, for example, um, I think we've got salmon tags, if that's right. I know last year um, was pink. The year before that was yellow. And so I can go back and if I see a U in production, early on we were using um, one ram predominantly in our early group and then one other ram in our later group. So I know kind of what that number cutoff is. So in the 21 2021 lambs, that those yellow tag, or I guess those would be orange tag, that like 50 range,
Hmm.
those are the ones that I have to go back and look at. So I know that anything 50 and lower is going to be out of the sire that we used in our early set.
Hmm.
Uh, 50 and higher is going to be out of a different ram, one that you actually own currently. And that's what seemed to work for us. I will say we've got 5 different rams in our early group this year, trying some different things, and we are just relying solely on some very detail oriented record keeping with that one color tagging. So that gets a little stressful. I know some individuals are using different colors for different rams. Um, my only fear is in a lot of these flocks, there's a lot of ram turnover. So do you run does does Premier make enough colors to put in those different color tags for each individual sire over the next 5 years?
Yeah,
Um,
we've talked about possibility of just buying some blank tags, just those smaller kind of clip over the ear tags, just to differentiate the sires on those.
yeah, and I
We're
think
doing the same thing every year. It's the uh, same color tags. This year we're using lime, and last year I think we used orange, and the year before that was yellow, and I think we go back to a red and a green for a different year kind of thing. And it is kind of nice to be able to just look at those colors and see what year they are. But again, you have no idea what the
what the
RAM is.
ram
So
is.
you look at
Yeah,
the number, and then half the time I have to go back and look it up on the in the computer to figure out which ones are which. And it is a little weird. But I have been to places like you say where they're using different colored tags, and they know exactly just they can look across the field. Oh, it's a green tag. That's this RAM. And I keep
right.
thinking, man, if you have this all printed up ahead of time, you've got a pile of them. You've got lambs with the same numbers, just different colored tags, and that would just confuse me to no end.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different options and opportunities to go about achieving that same task. And there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way, but just a lot of different ways to get the same point across.
Hmm. So is there anything else that you do for processing lambs?
We don't, not with the Katahdins. Certainly with the sheep that we used to run, uh,
Oh,
dock tails, uh, and castrate, and that's something that, because of the market that we're selling into, isn't necessary. And with those Katahdin ewe lambs, we're leaving the tails on, which early on was kind of an odd thing. And now it's more it's harder to look at a Katahdin ewe without a tail than than one that has one, which
yeah.
I never thought would happen. So
Yeah, I'm amazed how many little kids come, they look at the lambs, and the first thing they say is, "Why do they have tails?" And I
right.
always say they're all born with tails, and they're, "No, they're not, they're not." Yeah, like, yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
Every lamb that you've seen in a children's book has already been docked.
Yep,
Every single one of them. So, or in any piece of artwork, uh,
yep.
they've already been docked.
I
So
think that's one of the great things about the Katahdins is you don't have to dock the tails. That's just
yeah, it's
another another process that you don't have to go through. It's and you're not opening up another place for tetanus to come in.
right, right, and that's we never dealt with too many. We had some tailhead infections here and there, um, but it was just kind of something you'd expect. And with those weather type sheep, we were docking shorter than, um, what I would perform in a commercial operation, just to stay relevant. Um, and so you just kind of you knew you were going to run into it. You dealt with some of them, and you moved on. But yeah, I don't miss watching lambs, walk over to the corner and sit there and just act like it hurts a little bit. And they
Yeah.
get over it and they get up and they start running around. But definitely, I do miss, I think, the aspect of being able to see that vulva getting closer to lambing.
Mhm.
You kind of work around it and you gain an eye for it, and then some udder development. But again, if that tail is covering up udder development, and more so in ewe lambs, but covering up udder development in mature ewes, I'd argue that there isn't enough udder development to even worry
Yeah.
about looking at. So
I would definitely agree with that.
yeah, that's, I think, a huge upside. Um, but yeah, I know of some producers that ban those tails in their Katahdin ewes because of the reasons that I just spoke
Mhm.
on.
Yeah. So we're coming up on our time here. Is there anything else you want to add in the last minute?
I don't believe so. Just thanks for tuning in and look forward to doing quite a few more of these.
Absolutely. So we want to thank you for tuning in, as Cameron said, and listening to the Grazing Sheep podcast. And if it's something you like, make sure that you subscribe and follow and all that good stuff. So till we see you next time, happy lambing, happy grazing, all that fun stuff. So thanks, Cameron. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later, Tom.
All righty.